Just fuck off. I just need a moment. I want to think.
Okay. Think about what? Whether you want us to keep the company or hand it over to Tom and that piece of shit who killed our dad?
I might have changed my mind.
What the fuck? I'm good for this company. I'm good for us. You know, we all vote. We keep control. We don't, then everything's over forever.
Uh-huh.
Here's the thing. I am like a cog built to fit only one machine. Like, if you don't let me do this, I mean, it's the one thing I know how to do.
Well, it's not all about you.
I know.
Yeah, you are not the most important one.
I don't think I am.
Yes, you do. You do. You do. You fucking do. You do.
But Shiv, honestly, it's so fucking crazy not to just let me now. I mean, it's stupid. We all get something here. I mean, you're voting against yourself. You realize that? Shiv, listen, please. I beg you, listen. I can do this.
I don't think you'd be good at it.
What? I don't even believe you. I don't believe you.
I don't think that you would be good at this.
For fuck's sake, Shiv. I mean, for fuck's sake.
What the fuck is going on? It's 6-6, okay, and we don't have Shiv's vote.
This doesn't make, like, logic. Where's the logic?
No, I just don't think you'd be good at it.
By the way,
back in the lab.
Y'all are creatures of the moment when it comes to Succession, by the way. It's a great show.
No, it's the best show ever.
It's not the best show.
Yes, it is.
Top 5 and it's not 5.
It's the only show where people can be sitting around talking and still like capture the audience. There's no other show like that.
Let me paint this picture for you, okay? What this show has been able to achieve, I mean, is just insane. Okay, think about this. This show is based off of a conservative media outlet.
Okay.
Elite billionaires who basically just, squabble all the time. Petty, rich kids who are just kind of fighting over for, this idea of becoming the next CEO.
Right.
How on earth does that relate to literally 99% of us?
No, it don't relate to nobody.
Yes,
there is. Okay, let me finish.
We love to see rich people.
Exactly. Let me see. There's no violence.
There's no violence. There's no carnage.
No action. There's no like
there's
intricate
There's a soap
storyline.
opera feel to it a little bit, just the backstabbing, but it's no carnage.
A little bit, but
You know
yet
what I'm saying?
this show got me every Sunday.
And you can see how the characters develop. You can see how because every child had an opportunity or a moment where they felt like they were going to be.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Well, yeah.
Y'all never read
The
Macbeth,
acting,
huh?
the production.
Y'all never read Macbeth?
No.
That's why y'all think that this is such.
And guess what? Macbeth is supposedly a great Shakespearean play, right?
Macbeth.
Yes.
Succession.
No, it's not. It's not.
What?
It's the same storyline.
Okay.
It's the same.
Well, they chose a great
It's Macbeth.
play to use, right?
I mean, technically, it's kind of more mirrored off of
Lady Macbeth.
No.
Who essentially, Lady Macbeth was in a society in which being a female, she could not progress and seek power.
Oh my God.
So what she did was she manipulated her husband, right, to accomplish her desires to seek power because she knew that by being a woman in that space, she couldn't. It's the same thing that happens in this show.
No,
Shiv was never going to be CEO because she was a female.
You're talking about one character, bro.
No spoilers. No spoilers. No spoilers.
You're talking about one character.
The show was really, I think, more based off of the Murdochs, not Macbeth.
Yes.
I mean, philosophically, maybe, but
no, but you can tell also, like the father is Scottish. He's essentially the king who dies, and essentially.
Okay, so who's Tom? And who's Greg?
So Tom,
love Tom and
So,
Greg.
yeah, that's what I love. Okay. So who's Tom and Greg?
Tom is
Macbeth.
Macbeth. Shiv is Lady Macbeth. Lady McShiv was never.
Tom was never a main character in the show though. I don't want to get
apologies
spoilers.
in advance. Apologies in advance.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler
Yeah, I
alert.
didn't want to get. But
We
Tom,
didn't say that before.
The thing is, like Tom is Macbeth, right?
who's,
Like Tom
is Macbeth a major character in the show, in the movie? I mean, the play.
Tom is in every single episode.
But Tom is never. Tom is actually below the total point. They were.
That's the point. Is that in order? That's the entire point.
In order for Lady Macbeth to gain power, she had to go through Macbeth.
She had to go through her husband,
Macbeth,
who was just a general at the time.
Okay,
right.
Well, again, if they got it off of Macbeth, that's a great.
No, they got it off the Murdochs, but
that's a great show. I'm talking about the storyline,
tragedy of Macbeth, and so like.
So what's wrong with that?
But
because
listen to what you just said. Listen to what you just said. Where would you rank Macbeth as far
exactly?
as...
Macbeth is one of the most popular Shakespearean plays ever.
It's probably the best.
And you just compared it to
You just said it's the best.
We talking about goat on goat.
No. This
exactly.
Like, top five
from different time periods. There's a large demographic of people in the world right now that have never watched or seen or I'm sorry, heard Macbeth.
You can't name 5 shows that are better than Succession.
I can.
Name them.
All right. The Wire is better than Succession.
Yes, I agree with that.
I
Game
disagree
of
with
Thrones
that.
is better than Succession.
It ended horribly.
But it's still a better show.
That's the thing.
No,
What'd you say about Succession?
No, Succession, they nailed the landing.
They stuck
compared to every other show. Like, look at all the shows out there. Every show, that finale or that last season, everybody has questions. They get mad and like, man, I don't like the way it ended, yada, yada, yada.
Ends.
Nobody's complaining about Succession.
Landing.
Nobody.
All right.
Matter of fact, people are like, man, people are like, come back,
you off the hook.
do a spinoff.
That was 2.
Listen, if you want me to come off like 5 shows,
but you can't.
I can.
Okay, 5.
All right, so what was the show about the teacher who sold
remember
drugs? No, I can't remember.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad
is
better than Succession.
It's not.
It is.
It's not, but you can keep cooking.
He's struggling. No, that's 3.
We can start the show.
I can't just think off the top of it.
Because none of them are that great.
Welcome to First and 15th, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with AB. Next to him is my guy, Dayo the Machine. Guys, this is episode 1. I want to go all the way back.
Back in time
To season 1. And I think every season we've had this discussion about the 0 RB strategy. And the reason why I want to go back to that is because Austin Ekeler had a great year last year. Outscored Travis Kelce fantasy-wise, Justin Jefferson fantasy-wise.
Did he?
Tyreek Hill fantasy-wise, fantasy points, total fantasy points. Mm-hmm. Is Austin Ekeler's production the death of the 0 RB strategy?
Nah. 0 RB is alive and well and thriving. And this coming from a guy who was never a 0 RB fan. You got to learn when to pivot, okay? And so for me, a lot of it's just based on the current board. Mm-hmm. One, before we get to that, let's not forget who coined the wide receiver dead zone, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'm not getting my just due. I don't know. I'm just saying, I feel like I'm not getting my just due.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, now let's get back to it.
Y'all really gonna start? Y'all gonna start with talking about that?
Look, I'm just saying, if people won't smoke, I mean, we got the receipts.
And there's websites out there.
We got the receipts.
That's taking our show topics.
We got the receipts.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I never saw my.
You know what? I'm sending a cease and desist.
Your royalties.
Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm sending a cease and desist.
Cease and desist.
Yeah, cease and desist tomorrow.
No, we joking. All love. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at the current board, and this is nothing new. I think if you've been hopping in drafts, whether it's best ball or redraft, really what we're seeing is the running backs really kind of start to fall down the board. And I think that's due to a variety of different reasons, part in due to just so many unknown and ambiguous situations, guys in new places, a lot of unknowns currently right now. You got the Dalvin Cook situation. You got guys coming off of injuries like Javonte Williams. You got guys who kind of have some law and legal issues potentially and may get cut like a Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm. And then you got a lot of guys who just kind of came out of nowhere, who maybe the talent isn't elite, and we're not really sure what their team is doing next year. We're not sure that they can repeat. That's that whole tier of, from Miles Sanders, Cam Akers, Rashad White, etc. But, I mean, there's a lot of darts to throw in that category. Mm-hmm. And I think the number one reason for me that, I think 0 RB is alive, and I should change this. I don't even want to call it 0 RB. I mean, really what I'm saying is like trying to lock down a few elite wide receivers before attacking RB. Mm-hmm. I don't think you need to start your draft with 4 or 5 wide receivers, which I think is what, people would constitute a 0 RB strategy. Really what I'm talking about is locking in and making sure I get an elite wide receiver if I can before I start looking at the running back position, because I know I can get running back so much later on. And I think getting one of these top tier wide receivers, I think finding that in later in drafts is extremely difficult. Like, we may get one or two historically, but it's very, very tough. Whereas a running back, due to injury or just kind of finding that diamond in the rough, or really, again, just attacking this, RB not so dead zone in the middle rounds, I think is something that could end up being like a lucrative event. So, yeah, you could still start your draft with Austin Ekeler, I think, if he falls, fairly late. But for me, I mean, I'm really looking at, those top 4 right now, potentially 5. We'll see where D-Hop lands. But, looking at those top 4 wide receivers, I'm looking at Kelsey. And then, if those guys are off the board, then maybe I'm starting to consider running back a little bit.
Dayo.
Well, wait. Before you even start asking me the question, man. So Austin Ekeler, because I didn't know he was the number 1 fantasy point scorer. Who were 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? Because if I was to guess or assume, I would assume they were probably more so wide receivers.
They were all quarterbacks above Austin Ekeler.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about
besides the quarterbacks, the skill players. Because remember last year during draft season, the number 1 pick was Jonathan Taylor. I know he didn't produce last year, right? You got C-Mac, who was pretty solid, probably top 4 or 5 running back. You got Dalvin Cook, who kind of disappointed. Joe Mixon kind of disappointed. DeAndre Swift kind of disappointed. Derrick Henry, I think, was pretty solid, even though he was injured for a fair amount. So when you say is 0 running back dead just because Ekeler showed out, I think if you look at the other players, you actually prove that 0 running back is actually ideal or optimal as far as how it played out last year. Because
all right, so let's go down the list for a second. All
okay.
Right. So Jalen Hurts comes in at number 1.
We'll skip the quarterbacks.
All right, so skip the quarterbacks. Let's go Austin Ekeler,
okay.
number 1. All right. Justin Jefferson.
A receiver.
Cooper Kupp.
A receiver.
No,
it couldn't be Cooper Kupp.
You got to sort by fantasy points.
Yeah.
I did already. Oh, yeah, it couldn't have been because he was injured.
Yeah, but honestly, I think, the idea of 0 RB just isn't really, let's draft a lot of wide receivers and ignore the running backs because we love wide receivers.
Right.
I think the idea is that running back position is very volatile. You just listed off a number of injuries.
Running backs, yeah.
So
Austin Ekeler, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, we got Geno, then Tyreek Hill, then we got Christian McCaffrey, and then another quarterback, Kirk Cousins with Justin Fields. So, and then two running backs in,
and then those 2 running backs. One thing that kind of sticks out between those 2 is those are both pass catching running backs as well. Those are running backs that almost play like a hybrid wide receiver running back type position. Yeah. And even people that were talking up 0 running back last year, they still were likely taking a C-Mac, or Ekeler in the top 5 or 6. Now, I believe Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp were up there as well, but they weren't just saying, I'm going to totally ignore all the running backs and just focus only on wide receivers.
They weren't going Jeff Z, right?
Right. Jeff Z, my guy Jeff Z. Hopefully I'll see him in the streets this year. But, you still have to kind of decide which players you like. And it's not in a vacuum just saying, I'm just going to avoid all the running backs. So I don't think it's dead at all. If anything, kind of like what Abby is saying, if you can lock in those premium, high-scoring wide receivers, then I think it's going to benefit you in the long run because, especially in this time of draft season, I don't think the fantasy community really has a strong grasp on who the top running backs are going to be. Right? Yeah. I think there's still a lot of ambiguity. We really don't know what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook yet.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon was kind of up in the air. I think he's starting to raise in ADP, but there was a time period where people were kind of scared about what was going to happen with him.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what's going on with Derrick Henry, but I think his ADP has fallen compared to last year.
Oh, significantly.
Significantly.
Jonathan Taylor, I saw in the draft is going in the back end of the first round, early second round. So he's fallen off. This guy was the number 1 pick, almost consensus wide last year. Yeah. So all these running backs, are just kind of lower in the board. You can still get a good running back later, and we could talk about it on future episodes. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me because I looked at the draft is the Miami Dolphins backfield. All of those guys are being taken late.
Yeah.
One of those guys are going to be the main guy. One of those guys is going to be usable, maybe multiple of those guys. So,
and you have a number of backfields like that as well. So.
Right. So I think right now, and I said this also last season, but I think early in the draft season is the best time to go zero running back. Because there's so much ambiguity. There's still injuries that might occur. Yeah. Now, I know last year during the offseason or leading up to the season, we kind of got lucky. There wasn't that many major injuries. But let's not forget the history of NFL. Yeah. People get hurt. Let's not get a little bit too cocky and just say, man, we're Teflon now. No, anybody, I mean, we're the OTAs right now. If we get an alert somebody towards ACL tomorrow, it's not going to be surprising. It's going to hurt, but it's not going to be surprising. So wide receivers still are going to be a more optimal approach for me at the moment. Once we get close to the season where we know people's where their, what's the term I'm looking for, as far as their roles. Once we know their roles are locked in, that's when I think running backs would be more likely to be picked up in the earlier rounds. So
I know it's early in the season, but who do you think can possibly take over that top running back position from Austin Ekeler, meaning the fantasy production, not just rushing?
I think Austin Ekeler does not repeat. I just don't see it. In my mind, last year was one of those events where, he benefited from a coordinator that just, did not want to push the ball down the field. And in my mind, that offense struggled. I thought that offense operated very poorly. Let me finish, please.
No, you just threw me off for a little bit.
But I think that offense just like literally operated very poorly, and I think that's why they got rid of the OC. I think anytime your running back leads your team in receptions, you're probably on a bad team, and you're on a team that's like not going to see.
Yeah, that's what they did. Keenan Allen was hurt for a long time. Mike Williams was hurt for a fair amount. Josh Palmer ended up being a guy.
They did, but still, that even when those guys were healthy, it was still a very low A-dot offense with a quarterback who has a cannon for an arm. So them bringing Kellen Moore in now, I think that offense opens up a lot more. I think the idea of Ekeler being such a staple in the pass game, he's going to get his receptions. But I think the idea of being a staple in the pass game, I think we see a lot more Justin Herbert this year. I think we see a lot more big plays. And his red zone TDs, I see a regression there. Not just for regression, just to regress, but I just see, all it takes is Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnson just doing something this year, being healthy and ever being there. But really, to me, it comes down to the offensive coordinator. Remember, this is a completely different scheme. I still think Ekeler is worth a first-round pick, for me towards the back end. But this idea that he's going to repeat as a number one, I don't see it.
Okay, so who?
I don't see it.
The question was who? If it's not Ekeler, who?
I don't like any of them, to be quite honest.
No. The question was, if it's not Ekeler, who was the running back?
We're not going to hold you to it, by the way. Just right
I'm
now.
I'm going to hold it to it.
You definitely going to hold it to it.
I'm going to hold it to it. Hey, remember episode 1? Go back to who is the likely?
It's like feet to the fire, ignoring ADP, ignoring what everybody's saying out there.
I think ADP is irrelevant right now, by the way.
I have 3 players who I could potentially see that nobody's going to like these players, okay? So number 1 is Derrick Henry. Okay. I think he's just been casted aside. People are saying he's old. People are saying this offensive line is terrible. That
he is old. The offensive line is terrible.
They're saying all these things, okay? But year in and year out, he produces. And when he was healthy, he still produced.
Right. Getting older and starting to have
we can argue
issues,
about whether or not we can kind of really grade defenses right now. But the idea that that conference is just going to have a bunch of elite defenses to me is not there.
Okay. What's number 2?
So let me not get done. We've also seen Derrick Henry start to catch 2 to 3 passes a game. So to me, that's significant.
Who's number 2?
So Derrick Henry's up one is out there, and these are in no particular order. Nick Chubb, okay.
Wow.
Nick Chubb. Okay. So for me, Nick Chubb is in a position where we don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
So Nick Chubb could just be the Nick Chubb of old. Like he could just be kind of give you that good round 3 draft capital in return. You're not too excited, but he's someone that is definitely valuable to your fantasy team. Yeah. But we could also see his passing work and passing game unlocked. We could also see that truly elite season, the Adrian Peterson career year, the Derrick Henry career year. And if he catches 2 to 3 passes per game, I think we could really see him explode. Yeah. He doesn't need to see more carries. What he needs to do is be in an offense that can produce. he needs to be in an offense that can, see more red zone love. And mostly really what the number one overall running back comes down to and the number one overall player comes down to is really who scores the most TDs. Okay. So if we see this offense potentially improve, okay, you see a little bit of passing game work, he gets lucky in the TD department, he could easily be number one.
All right, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb.
Who's number three?
Number 3, Tony Pollard. Okay. Again, another unknown situation. Everyone's kind of questioning what the workload looks like. Again, I'm in the camp that you don't need a large workload. He can really be kind of an Austin Ekeler-like.
I can see it.
Yeah. I don't know what the Cowboys offense is really going to look like. I mean, everyone's saying, McCarthy's obviously saying he wants to, ground and pound, wants to really establish the run. But what they've done in the offseason with their receiving core, with Gallup getting healthy, bringing over Brandon Cooks, obviously you have CeeDee there. I like that Schultz is gone now because I think that opens up a certain aspect of the field. Yeah. So, and again, the one issue that we were having with Tony Pollard last year was that he was not getting the red zone love and the goal line love. And just like the years before, remember when we had the argument about Ekeler, everyone was saying, he's never seen goal line touches, never seen goal line touches. And what did we go back to? We kept going back to it's a different offensive coordinator. You cannot say that he's no longer going to see offensive touches. So I'm going to say the same thing with McCarthy in this year, and obviously they're not being a Zeke. We could see Tony Pollard getting a lot of red zone touches. And this could really be a very, very good offense. So those are my top 3. You don't have to draft them as such because obviously they're going in the second round. So this is another reason why I have zero interest in taking McCaffrey, Austin Ekeler, even Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon in the first round.
Bijan in a minute.
Yeah.
Who do you see potentially taking over Austin Ekeler's top spot as?
For me, I don't see anybody taking over Ekeler's top spot because going back to what I just said a moment ago, Ekeler is one of the few running backs that I think is kind of like a hybrid as far as he's a running back, but he also plays like he gets wide receiver type work, And I think that's we always talk about Konami codes with quarterbacks in fantasy. It's the quarterback that runs. I think the Konami code for running backs is the running back that catches the ball. Especially when we're talking about PPR. Literally catching a screen behind the backfield is a point before you even cross the line of scrimmage.
Right.
So I think that's the cheat code, and I think that's what benefited Ekeler. Now, of course, he scored those touchdowns as well. But even like Abby was saying, last year leading up to draft season, we were always complaining about the fact that Ekeler wasn't scoring touchdowns. Getting that goal line work. But still, at the end of the day, he was still a first-round pick. He was still highly touted, even without that touchdown incentive. Now that he got it, we actually see what he was able to do. But not only that, I do think the addition of Kellen Moore as the OC is actually going to benefit them. You were making points as far as you believe the offense is going to improve next year. I agree with you. I do think the offense is going to improve. But with that improvement, I think it's one of those situations where a rising tide lifts all boats, or whatever, however the phrase goes. I'm always trying to say phrases, I always get them wrong. But I do believe that, getting an offense that works better is going to allow Ekeler to get even more goal line work. I don't believe in any other running back in that backfield. I know they've used Kelly. I know they drafted Spiller, who was a lot of people in the fantasy community and just the community in general thought he was going to be a good running back.
Not me.
Of course, Abby Damas over here. Other than that, who was his competition?
Yeah.
And not to mention, I believe he is in a contract year. I know they gave him a restructure.
Right.
But I don't know if it
Wasn't
extended
much
him.
money.
You know whose competition is?
Who?
Keenan Allen, Mike Williams.
No, I hear
Quentin
you.
Johnson.
I hear you.
And Everett.
I hear you.
Those guys didn't produce in the red zone last year.
I hear you.
Those guys didn't produce downfield
but again,
last
going
year.
back to what I was saying, when they are in the red zone, I don't think they're just going to say, you know what, let's just be a pass team. I do believe they're still going to try to use their running back because he's shown he can do it.
Yeah.
He's shown he can be productive, he can be effective. And let's not forget, of course, we can't just, it's not an apples to apples thing that we just can't say, they did this here in Dallas, so let's just superimpose this on top of LA. But at the end of the day, we did see Zeke getting a lot of goal line touchdowns last year. We did see Pollard used quite a bit in the passing game and the running game. Both those running backs were fantasy relevant last year.
But that's the thing. You bring up a good point because I really do see this is as a team that plans on bringing in a running back.
And if they do, that changes the landscape. You could do that with any situation.
But even
right?
if they don't, I guarantee Ekeler does not finish. The number one.
I'm not sitting here guaranteeing Ekeler's going to do. I'm Yeah, if y'all listen to our show a lot, y'all know I'm never somebody that's gonna make any kind of. I'm never gonna stake a claim on anything or make a guarantee.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna see how I view things. And when looking at the situation, I do believe Ekeler is in a great situation.
Yeah.
Also, if it's not Ekeler, to answer your question, I then see it being C-Mac. For the same reason I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He is that hybrid running back, receiver type player. He's in a great offense. Now he's actually going to be able to go through a whole offseason in that great offense. Yeah. He gets the opportunity at the goal line. Now the concern is Elijah Mitchell. But number one, Elijah Mitchell, he can't stay healthy. And when they did have him last year, C-Mac's numbers went down a little bit, but they still use C-Mac a lot. So.
But see, people can't stay healthy until they can. We literally had this discussion. So that's why we smashed it on C-Mac last year. That's why we smashed it on Barkley last year.
Right.
And that's why we avoided Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Didn't we? We literally had this discussion. You said the reason that you wanted Jonathan Taylor 101 is because he's never been injured. And what did I say? I think Jonathan Taylor is more likely to suffer an injury than C-Mac.
But I'm not saying I like C-Mac because I think Mitchell's going to get hurt. I'm not saying that. Even if Mitchell stays healthy the whole season, I still think C-Mac.
But his production drops off significantly.
It does. But again, going back to what I just said, he never had the full offseason with the team. He came in literally the middle of the season. I think he was traded on a Thursday or Friday and played that weekend.
Yeah.
He
produced too.
Yeah, and he produced. And remember, well, I don't know if it's common knowledge, but in the football season, they're not really installing things during the season. The install is more in training camp and before the season starts. Once the season starts, they're practicing maybe 2 days a week?
Yeah.
Tuesday and Wednesday, or maybe Wednesday and Thursday, and then they have a walkthrough on Friday and they play the game on Sunday. So he really didn't get that full offseason to really get a total grasp on the offense. Now,
I think that's less important for running backs, though. But.
I mean, possibly so, but it doesn't hurt now that he's going to get the full offense, right? And they might even decide, you know what? There's something about this player that we can actually do differently that we didn't even consider last year.
Yeah.
Now that we actually be able to see him.
I think this is a playoff team, though, and I think, Mike Shanahan, you saw when Elijah Mitchell was healthy, they made it a point to try to preserve C-Mac. So over the course of the season, I think he continues to do that. I think he continues to view this as a playoff team and really needing C-Mac down the stretch.
And getting high value.
Yeah. And that's the only reason why, I never want to be in the first round, especially the mid and back round, and see C-Mac still there. I love when somebody takes him a little bit early.
Oh, I would smash the draft if C-Mac's on the back of the first round.
Yeah.
But again, just going back to your question, those are the guys I see as far as possibly taking that role. Now, him bringing up Henry, Chubb, and not Pollard, but Henry and Chubb, I still have concerns with their passing work.
Yeah.
I don't care what they did last year. You gave them 2 extra targets, whatever. I still have concerns because
basically Derrick Henry points per game. Somebody stat correct me on this. I feel like over the last 2 or 3 years, probably maybe not last year, but the 2 years before, he was the number one RB, and he may have been the number 1 overall RB, even overall points the year previously, maybe 2 years ago. So I think points per game, I think the dude is just elite. I don't think he's elite. He's one of the few guys who doesn't need catches.
I'm not saying he's not elite at all. All I'm saying is if I was a betting man and I was to say who is going to take the mantle away from Ekeler, there's too many warts I see in Henry where I can just say, you know what, he's the guy.
That's fair.
And if he ends up being the guy, obviously it's not going to be totally surprising. He's looked like the guy in the past. He has the role. Yeah. His competition, Tajay Spears came in. We'll see what he does. He has that arthritic knee. Hassan Haskins is still there. Different offense. Tim Kelly is there. Remember, we know Tim Kelly from the Texans days. Yep. And that Texans offense running game was not the greatest, but whatever. They didn't have no Derrick Henry players. So again, I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't want to bet on it. And Chubb, same situation. He doesn't get the passing work like he does now. Kareem Hunt is not in the fold anymore. So obviously there's a role there to be had.
Dearness is gone too.
Dearness is gone. My guy Dearness. I'm gonna have a place in my heart for Dearness, but he's gone too. But
Jerome Ford to get some.
We'll see how it works now with the Browns, and we can talk about this on a future episode. I do think they might get a little bit more pass centric.
Oh, for sure.
Compared
but I like
to the
that.
past.
Let's stick with running backs.
I like that. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Let's stick with running backs though, because both of y'all, listen, in the chat we talked about drafts and things like that. I think Abby, you were in a draft where Bijan went 6 overall.
Bijan?
Yeah, Bijan. That's what I said.
Bijan. Bijan Robinson.
Oh, man, it's the same difference.
Come on, man.
Stop it.
Respect.
Stop it. It's the same
Respect
difference.
his name.
It's the same
Bijan.
difference. You were in the draft where Bijan went 7th overall, all right? Like, is it just me, or is that a ridiculous place to draft?
I mean,
him
I've seen him go like maybe I think the 103.
Yeah, but that was kind of an outlay. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've.
Well,
kinda
his
seen him-
ADP is 107
I know.
per Fantasy Mojo.
Do you think
ADP
that that's
107.
ridiculous to draft him there?
No, I do not. Yeah, and I'll tell you this why. Because anyone who can give you or is telling you a projection as far as Bijan goes right now, they don't know. None of us know. Okay, we don't know what Arthur Smith is going to do, and I know I hear all the Arthur Smith doesn't know how to use elite talent, this and that. We don't know, because guess what? At the end of the season, if he finishes RB1 and he caught 70 passes because he was lining up in the slot like they saying he's doing in OTAs. I know they say that for everybody, but he catches 70 passes. He scores 15 TDs, because guess what? That Atlanta O-line last year was actually pretty damn good. We just saw Tyler Algier, a 5th round pick. What round was he drafted in? We saw him pretty much
4th rounder.
4th rounder really do some damage.
I might be totally wrong, by the way. Don't come at me on Twitter. I might be totally wrong.
So Pitts, London, another year in. Like, this offense could low key be decent. Like,
But the question was, is it ridiculous to draft him?
No, it's not ridiculous.
Okay.
Because it really depends on at 107. Like, I wouldn't take him above. These are guys that I would not.
You wouldn't take him at all because you're doing 0 running back.
No, I'm not doing 0 running back. Come on, man.
You just said you would take a receiver in the first round.
Don't place labels on me like that, man.
Look, I thought he just.
I'm gonna list off the players. I'm gonna list off the players right now that I will take.
Algier was drafted in the 5th round, by the way.
Okay.
I know I said, man, it's the mind, baby. The mind.
There you go. Still
You
there.
got
You ain't got to call me out during the show, bro. Like, we could have waited after the show.
All
Golly.
right. So players I'm taking before Bijan for sure. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Travis Kelce, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Ekeler, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and that's in no order. Okay, those are the guys that I'm for sure taking above Bijan.
That sounds like an order.
The rest is just based on whatever the current ADP is, and if I need to diversify.
So you take Bijan.
So you're getting Bijan this season. If you were in the 11 hole in the draft.
No.
Now listen to my analogy.
Yeah,
If you're in the 11 hole in the
I know
draft.
exactly where you're
Right
And
now,
Bijan,
I'm
yes,
not taking
today.
right now. I'm not taking any running backs in the 11th round.
Didn't I just?
in the 1st round.
In the 1st round.
That's what I just
right
said.
Now. That's
We
right
talked
now.
about that in the
We
chat.
in the
That's right
moment.
now.
Yes, we talked
We
about
in
that.
the moment.
Yes, like
That's right now.
Would you
Right now,
take
you
a running
just
back
said.
in the 1st round? We talked about
Okay,
that.
if Austin Ekeler fell to the 111, yeah. Christian McCaffrey fell to the 111, yeah. Other than that, no, I'm not taking any of these other running backs in the 1st round.
So you're not
Y'all can
drafted.
have
Like I just said, you're not drafted Bijan then.
You asked me if it was ridiculous. I
No,
didn't
you
say
did.
it was ridiculous.
No, he asked that. You said it's not. But then I
Yeah.
asked you, would you draft him in the 1st round? And I said you wouldn't.
Nah, not touching him.
Okay, I got you.
Not right now. Not right
Right,
now.
so where are you
but I
drafting?
will eventually.
My answer is the same as Abby. I think it's not ridiculous because the people that draft Bijan, they're drafting him because they're telling themselves a story. They're telling themselves they see him being the number one running back due to his opportunity, the potential role.
Yeah.
Because remember, with fantasy, when you take these players, you have to take them with the mindset that they're going to reach their pinnacle.
You got to be Shakespeare. You got to be able to tell yourself.
Let's not get back on.
Yeah, but
Let's
okay,
not
but
do it.
no, really though, when
Let's
you
not
play
do it.
fantasy football, you got to be able to tell yourself a very, very good story.
Yeah.
That story needs to be accurate,
Right.
as accurate as possible. But you
Right.
got to be able to tell yourself a story, because if you basically just going off of everybody's projection, you
Yeah,
going off of what
it's not
happened
gonna
last
work.
year, it's not going to work. That's
Yeah.
all retrospective. That's all
Right.
based on. But if you can like navigate and tell yourself a story and end up at a different conclusion, like Succession.
Nah,
Yeah, but yeah, like that stuff. That's
Y'all want to
important.
make me dump
That's
on
important.
Succession.
Nah, chill out,
when
chill
I
out,
love
chill
the
out,
show.
chill out, chill
I
out, chill
love
out.
the
Okay,
show.
okay.
I love
No,
it.
but
It's
for
a
real,
great
like,
show.
if you think Bijan is gonna just be, one of the running backs, Algier's gonna get his work. They'll use him, but they'll also use Pitts and London and everybody, and Ritter might even run a little bit. Then it would be stupid for you to draft Bijan there just because you see him at the queue at the top. But if you think the Falcons are gonna say we pick Bijan top 10, what was his pick? 5 or 8? Where was Bijan picked?
It was early.
It was early, like top 7. No,
Okay.
top 10. You might be
Okay,
right.
so
Top
if you
10.
think they're going to take Bijan and basically
10
say,
overall.
we want you to put the team on your back, and we're going to give you as much of a workload as possible, and we're also going to give you that passing work, which is what they're saying they're doing, it's not a ridiculous pick because that's a type of league winner. You know, he's young. He has a great line. He's getting passing work.
Remember, think back to. I want people to think back to a couple things. Think back to the year JT was the number 1 overall RB.
Mm-hmm. That was last year. Are you talking about the season or the pick?
Season?
Okay.
The season.
So
the
the year
season.
before.
The year before. What was going on that season? He was just breaking off and ripping off just long runs and
Was it
scoring
COVID
touchdown.
season, right? Was that a COVID season?
Maybe. Stop asking questions where I'm not quite sure that.
Bijan was the 8th overall.
But you think back to that season, it was just an elite athlete with elite talent who was just basically going gangbusters, breaking long runs and scoring touchdowns.
Gangbusters.
He's going gangbusters.
But the only difference.
But same thing with Derrick Henry. The year that he was the overall number 1 RB, he was touchdowns, long runs. There was really nothing.
But the only difference, in not to pour water on what you're saying. Well, really, yes, to pour water on what you're saying. Those teams didn't have. And I'm not saying he's great by any stretch of the imagination, but he is somebody to respect, and that's Tyler Algier.
Yeah.
He did end the season pretty solid. He looked pretty
they had
good.
Naheem Hines. You can laugh all you want. People were
I'm not
you were
laughing at all.
drafting Naheem Hines. You were drafting Naheem Hines. Even when I was I'm not touching Naheem. Y'all were drafting Naheem. Don't tell me
Hines is not somebody
not
we saw
pretend.
as a grinder 3-down back type player. Algier actually was their grinder 3-down back in the back half of the season.
I'd rather have that than the guy who can catch
No,
passes.
well, the point I'm making is those players that you're talking about, JT, when he was the guy, there was no other guys there. I mean, they probably gave him a little rest here and there, but he was getting that work. Henry was getting that work. You know, the ideal situation is for Bijan to get that work. But if the team decides, you know what, we like Algier, he's still young, he still produces. They might say, you know what, we might like him better between the tackles because he's a bigger back, and they actually decide to give him let's say they give him 10 carries a game. That is not going to be ideal for Bijan.
But that team runs a lot.
It does run a lot.
Look, if they give
or
him
at least
10,
they want to.
Yeah, if they give him 10 carries a game, but Bijan gets 15 carries a game, and then Bijan also gets 3 to 4 catches a game, he could still end up being the number 1 overall.
He could, but that's not as good as getting 20 carries a game.
To me, no. To me, it is. That is definitely better than getting 20 carries a game. If you're
How's
getting
that better than getting 20?
Because if you're getting some of these carries, especially in between the 20s, some of these carries are meaningless. You rip off a 10-yard one, that's 1 point.
I hear
but
you.
if Bijan catches a 1-yard pass, like
I hear you, but
and Bijan is an elite athlete, so
but the analogies you were making,
he just needs 1 carry.
But the analogy you were making with JT and Henry, those guys were getting 20
I don't
plus
think JT
carries.
was.
They were getting 20 plus carries a game.
But I don't think he needs to do it. That's the difference between Bijan and those other guys. Is Bijan is an elite pass catcher. I don't even want to use the term elite. He's a very good pass catcher.
Let's pump our
so
brakes.
he gets added.
But let's pump our brakes on saying what Bijan's going to be before he touches.
We're not saying what he's going to be. I'm saying what
Exactly.
he is. I'm saying he's a good pass catcher, which means there's a potential for him to catch.
Yeah,
passes.
there's potential.
A
Yeah,
better potential than those other guys.
Right.
So that's why I
there's
say he
definitely-
doesn't need to be a workhorse because
thing
he
is,
can add. He
when
can
I-
get there with his pass catching.
But when
you
I
just
draft-
said that's the Konami code, right?
right. If they use him that way,
Right.
Okay.
they still have to use him that way, and
When
we
I-
don't know what because okay. Think back to when Kyle Pitts was drafted, the greatest tight end prospect ever.
Y'all said that, not me.
No, I didn't say that at all. I'm just saying that's what was being said around
Yeah.
the football world.
Yeah.
The highest tight end ever drafted in the NFL draft. People were drafting this rookie tight end in fantasy in the first 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
We were thinking, man, they have nobody else there on the Falcons. Like, who do they have? Calvin Ridley was
suspended.
suspended. They had Russell Gage.
Yeah.
They had I don't even know who was playing running back at that time.
Cordero, like for the most part. Cordero was like their lead.
No, it
back.
wasn't Patterson because remember we picked up Patterson off waivers because nobody
that's
thought
right,
he was the
that's
guy.
right,
Mike
that's
Davis.
right.
Yeah, Mike Davis.
Mike Davis.
You know, so it was like, of course, it's gonna, so of course, we were looking at like Pitts. Obviously, is going to be the guy. He's going to get everything.
Yeah.
And how the Falcons use him,
Yeah.
almost like he wasn't even on the
But
team.
see, and this is part of the reason why I'm not drafting him right now. I'm just waiting for one little piece of bad news, which will be like Algier looks good in camp. The team sees Algier's role, you know, really like maintaining.
You think
from
that'll
last
make
year.
his ADP go down?
Yes, because this back end like from like 8
It
on,
can't go any higher,
It's
right?
just a bunch of just like randomness.
So you think if there's
just
positive buzz about Algier, people will say, you know what,
human
let
nature.
me pass on Bijan.
Yes, and then that's when I'll say, okay, now let me get some Bijan.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I just can't draft a running back in the first round that has that many question marks who I've never seen.
Chris, you said the same thing about C-Mac last year.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
The thing
you did. You
we've
said, I
seen
can't
C-Mac
draft C-Mac.
No.
What?
That was based on
No, he's making a
injuries.
good
What I'm
point. He's
saying
making a good
is-
point. He's seen
what I'm saying
C-Mac
is-
do it.
Yeah, I've seen C-Mac do it, so that's different.
Yeah.
I would have drafted C-Mac.
Bro, why is this right
My-
here on the floor? But go ahead.
I have no idea. My argument about C-Mac is I wouldn't take him first overall.
Yeah.
But the thing about Bijan is that
Bijan.
man, that's what I'm calling it.
Okay.
It's this year's version of Daryl and Darrell.
Darrell, yeah.
But the thing is,
Except there's
we
no question.
We know what it is, but keep cooking over there.
we haven't seen him run in the NFL, and I
Yeah.
just can't take a running back that high.
Then you're not going to be winning a lot of tournaments. If
No,
your mantra and your philosophy is I have not seen it, therefore I cannot do. You need to. I just told you, you got to be able to tell yourself
That's not
a story.
what I'm saying.
Abby,
I'm
but-
talking about the first round.
But
for a
Abby,
running
not-
back.
It doesn't matter where. It does not matter where.
But
You have
Abby,
to be able to see a story.
Bijan ain't for everybody, man.
Say what?
Bijan ain't for everybody. There's
I'm
gonna
just
be
saying,
people
look,
that just they
I'll
won't
tell
feel
you this right
comfortable
now.
taking.
I'll tell
him.
you this right now. If you're doing 1, 2, 3 drafts and you don't want to take Bijan, I 100% understand that.
Yeah.
But if you doing a number of drafts and you're just like I'm not taking Bijan in the first round, you need to stop drafting. Like,
All right, so let me
ASAP.
ask you.
You need to stop drafting.
Mr.
You need to, like-
Two-time FFPC champion. Do you see yourself at some point drafting Bijan in the first round?
Yes, I'm just going.
But just
I'm
not
waiting,
right
I'm, No, I'm waiting for that bad news. There's no point.
So okay,
there's no, there's no
wait,
reason for me to
wait,
draft
wait,
him second.
okay. I got 2 questions.
Yeah,
If he does fall, the
Yeah.
bad news, and say he falls to like the 11 today, like say the bad news came out right now, we get an alert.
yeah.
Algier is running with the ones. Bijan looks horrible out there. You
Yeah.
can't figure it out. Are you going to draft him at 11 today?
Yeah, because 11 doesn't matter. And this is why I'll draft him at 11.
So you will draft him at 11?
Yeah, but look, this is why I'll draft him at 11. Because we're saying the first round, but honestly, 10, 11, 12 doesn't matter. If I draft Bijan 11 and then go and get, one of my favorite wide receivers at the 202,
202.
it doesn't matter. Versus if I take a wide receiver.
Right, that's true, that's true, that's true, that's true,
So
that's
there, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that background, so I
Yeah,
want to see him
it's
fall.
the same.
Whereas if I take him at 7, what comes back to me is just not as juicy. It's
got
not
you.
as good. It feels like the players aren't as elite, but I'm also playing. I'm also like,
So do you
avoiding
see
or
yourself?
not getting
Okay.
a cup
So then my
or a hill.
second question
Yeah.
is: if no bad news ever comes out, will you ever be drafted Bijan this?
Yeah, I will.
So at some
force
point you
myself
will
to
get him
take
at
a share.
7.
I will force myself
Just for-
because I can
just for
tell myself a
diversity.
story. Yeah, but not just for diversity's sake. Because I think this is something that like I literally we'll have a different show on this. But like last year, my whole thought process was like learning how to diversify. Mm-hmm. And
I just said
learned-
for diversity.
Yeah, but I think you have to diversify the right way.
I got you.
And it's probably different for everybody. But
And
for
this
me,
is for a volume player.
yeah. But
Yeah.
for me, like, I need to be able to, like I said, tell myself a story and
Okay.
believe in that story. And then, yes, he will be added to the pool of players that I will take at that particular position.
Yeah. So for
around in the
me,
draft.
for my answer, I will be at some point drafting Bijan regardless of where he's at, but I'm going to wait it out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and I've told y'all my philosophy. Early in the draft season, I'm more focused on receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's going to be right. Like I have a chance to get Ekeler, I'm probably going to take Ekeler.
Yeah.
But I'm going to probably prioritize getting these wide receivers because I feel like their roles are locked in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything that can happen with these wide receivers that will change their value. While I think running backs can fluctuate ridiculously.
Yeah. The only thing, when I drafted, this is one thing that, excuse me, this is one thing I always think about, like when I draft, especially drafting early, is because I know I'm going to be drafting quite a few teams. I always think, where can this player shift and fluctuate? What is his max ADP? Just trying to think about all the potential news that can come out. Mm-hmm. And what's his lowest ADP? Thinking about all the news that can come out.
I'm going to be.
So,
Go ahead,
let me
I'm
finish.
sorry.
Yeah. So, thinking about that process, I try to get a guy at value. If I feel like the guy is already at his peak ADP, like for me, the only way Bijan could like move up the board is with an injury, which is possible, or if an injury occurs to Tyler Algier. Those are the only 2 things that I can see where his ADP goes up. So for me, there's only room to go down. Now, you can argue board shifting and all that stuff, but I still like to get guys at value.
So I'm going to keep it a buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything that can happen that will make his value go down.
Oh, wow.
I don't think there's any news that other than him himself getting injured.
Yeah.
And obviously it has to be the way. But if I don't care if it's great news with Algier or horrible news with Algier or whatever, or I don't care if they bring in Dalvin Cook. I don't think there's anything
Oh, you crazy, man. Come on now. Stop it.
I don't
if they bring it, if they bring it
because
down,
I think
ADP will go down.
He's drafted right now because of people viewing his talent, not so much his role.
But again, we just talked about Tyler Algier being a 5th round pick. And this
Right.
guy being drafted at round 10 is not just his talent. It's also that.
No, but what I'm saying, I'm talking about perception. I'm not talking about reality or anything. I'm talking about fantasy perception and the people that are drafting that high. I don't think there's anything that can happen that'll make people say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be drafting him this high, right? On the flip end, I do think there's things that can happen that can make his ADP go up, whether it's buzz through social media, injuries again happening to the guys taken before him. I think where he's at now is okay. So, and I don't know if you can recall, but back when Saquon was drafted, I think he was going where Bijan is going now.
He was going to the back end.
Okay, yeah, the first round though, but like
back in the
10,
first round,
you know, 10 or whatever. I think that's the same way people view Bijan as far as value. You know, so I don't. So for me, if I'm gonna get Bijan, I have to go in the draft saying if I get one of those middle picks, I got to take my shot because I don't think it's ever gonna be a point where I can say, let me wait to the back end of the first and he'll fall to me because I don't see anybody jumping him. I don't see that role. As far as whether I'll do it, I think I'll eventually do it. I do like Bijan. I do like his talent. And again, especially when you're drafting early, you got to look at the best case scenario, man. You can't look at a floor. If you're drafting the first round for a floor, that's a losing proposition.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to win a tournament. And remember,
Lose it.
you're not going to win a tournament. You're not going to win a tournament getting floor players in your first round.
Hey man, I got my first.
You got your
chip
medal,
back there.
your
I got my
FFPC
first-
medal.
yeah,
It came in.
Oh yeah, but real quick, I know this is not a review of the past. I mean, we gotta give it up to our boy Dayo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Large tournament.
Oh, yeah.
FFPC.
yeah.
Football guys.
Yeah, man.
He's not happy, but we proud of him.
I'm proud of you.
Top 3
I am.
finish.
I'm not happy, man.
Top 3.
What's that Kobe Bryant
overall
gift?
finish?
Works not finish.
Who works that?
Works not finish.
Top 3 overall FFPC finish.
No, it's
top
5.
3. 5. Sorry.
I was number
top
5. Yeah, I was number
top 5, and he was 5.
Top 5, dead or alive. Yeah.
I
top
got
five, he
I
was
got a
five.
little money for that, but
Hey, top 5. I mean, it's a large tournament. 10,000 or 8,000. I mean, it's a lot of people in it.
It don't matter who's behind me. I was trying to get to the front.
Yeah.
I got you. I
Yeah, I'm
got you.
trying
I
to
got
get
you.
front.
But that's a hell
But,
of a finish on the tournament.
Yeah, it was cool.
Hats
I just wish it was
off,
better. It was exciting that weekend though. I
Yeah,
kind of know how
yeah,
you felt.
But you-
I was like,
I was excited for you to be
Hey,
honest.
you know what?
Turn
You know
the
what?
phone off. I want to hear nobody.
I
do
want to
it.
say, wasn't that New Year's Day?
I don't.
It was some kind of holiday because I had a lot of family over my house.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch the games, and
Yeah.
I didn't look at the scores.
Yeah.
I was just like, just with the family, and I wanted to look at my
Yeah.
phone later and be like, man, it's crazy. But then I was like, Justin Jefferson had like 2 catches.
And I do remember you sending like a text out because we always talk about like, okay, how many bullets we got?
Yeah.
We got a banger now. You like, I think I got one.
Yeah.
I think
Nah,
I got one. So
my team was cool. And you know what's crazy about that team? We're going on a tangent right now, but my quarterback,
I love this about that.
my quarterback was Jared Goff. Bro.
Yeah.
Nobody up there had Jared Goff.
And you also had you played White in that.
White? Who's White? Rashad White?
No, the Jets quarterback.
Mike White?
Yeah, Mike White.
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike White was my backup quarterback. Yeah. So you don't have to get these great quarterbacks. You can build a team and still find a way to be
It's all about
successful.
management.
This is why I always talk about like be careful with like retrospective review, and data and analysis. Like, yeah, it can be helpful in a lot of ways, but you got to be thinking about like what's going to happen this year. And so, yeah, we saw a lot of teams last year have Mahomes, Kelsey, Ekeler, and a couple of other players, but he didn't have any of those players.
Nope.
He still finished top 5, so you can get there. Like you
You
don't
gotta
have to
grind it
follow.
out, man. You just
You don't
gotta
got to
grind
follow
it
a
out.
certain path. So
Yeah.
and we'll talk more throughout the year.
So let's move on for a second. Let's talk about the Jags. Listen, Calvin Ridley is back after his 1-year suspension for gambling. He's not going to be with the Jags. Listen, Christian Kirk had his first 1,000-yard season, 8 touchdowns last year. Who's the man to draft with this Jags receiver room? Is it Calvin Ridley or is it Christian Kirk?
Man, I've done
Kirk.
All right.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that. I've done a couple of drafts, a couple,
Just a couple.
just a couple. I have 0 Ridley shares. I do have maybe 1 or 2 Kirk shares. I'm not really targeting any of them, but like if I had to pick one, I'm definitely taking the guy who has like an ADP that's like 2 rounds later.
That's the key right there, where they're being drafted at.
So a couple things with Calvin Ridley, like, I think right now, I'm not saying he's being drafted at his ceiling. Obviously, he was an elite talent. I don't know where he is now. How old is he? Let's
28,
look
27, 28.
So he's older, but this dude has like not played in close to 2 years almost.
Yeah, he had an injury one year, and then he had the psychological issues and suspension. Yeah.
So it may not even be an issue with rust. Like just a guy like not playing that long and being kind of like the type of player he is, it just worries me about injury.
Right.
I think those guys, you kind of have to like bake that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's going like really at the beginning of the 4th round. There are a lot of guys, so many guys I would rather take over him.
Not to mention, Kirk already has built rapport with Lawrence.
Yeah.
We've actually seen it with him. We don't know what really is yet.
And to be quite honest, really most of my decision, because even if it was in a vacuum, like most of my decision is really just going to be based on the offense. I do not see this as an offense that wants to like feed one wide receiver. I see this as an offense that really will spread it around.
They did that last year.
Yeah, that's why you'll have
Marvin Jones.
Yeah, that's why you'll have 3 or 4 games with Kirk going off,
yeah.
and then he'll like go ghost, and then you'll have a couple games where really probably goes off, then he'll go ghost, and then you'll have the Evan Ingram game. And I hate drafting guys that early who I just can't depend on. Like, please just at least give me 12 points, at least. I need the blow up weeks too, but at least give me 12 points. Don't come here giving me 2-3 points, and then I gotta guess when you're gonna go off.
Ridley is 28.
28, like I said, yeah. So I was right on that. Twitter put that in the notes. But if it was in a vacuum, it's in a vacuum, I'm actually going Ridley. Because because, and it goes back to what I was saying with that first round pick, I think Ridley has the higher ceiling. If everything works out perfectly for Ridley, if everything lines up right, Ridley has the potential to be like a top 5 wide receiver.
We saw Kirk's ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen Kirk's ceiling.
Receiver 1.
He can't get to top 5. He could very useful.
Yeah.
Put him in your lineup every week and be happy. But I don't think he's gonna be somebody that's gonna like where my team's gonna ride him all the way to the ship.
Yeah.
Well, I can actually see really doing that. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but I can see it. But again, the question you're asking, who am I taking? Because Kirk is going so far lower, because right now, nobody in the fantasy community knows. We're all guessing. Honestly, everything about this is guessing. Leading up to week 1, we're just guessing. Educated guess, maybe educated. We think we're educated. We think we're educated, and then we sell ourselves on that, but we don't really know, right? So everybody's taking really right now way higher because they think he's the guy and he's going to be the man. When if we look back week 8 and Kirk ends up having more fantasy points, it's not going to surprise anybody.
I got a hot take. I guarantee Evan Ingram outscores one of them.
Like
both of them.
In tight end premium or just
in tight end premium, he will outscore one of these, either Ridley or Christian Kirk.
I mean, tight end premium, of course.
Yeah.
I probably prefer tight Ingram over all of them.
Because remember when?
Yep.
Remember playoffs? Like you sometimes, like you got to look at what's going on off the field. So we'll say that for later.
And I can't unsee when you was like, hey, like Evan Ingram is really their slot receiver. Sorry.
I'm joking, because
right.
I'm not drafting Evan Ingram right
Hey,
now.
Kill Bill.
don't forget going to the season. I was on the Evan Ingram train pretty hard.
We hit tight end last year.
Yeah, I was on it hard.
Like we smashed tight end last year. And you know my boy, this is another one too, Jawan Johnson that everybody's on. Not last year, the year before I started him.
Yeah.
Opening day.
So
that's my boy Jawan.
Yeah, the Jaguars, like I said, really I think Ridley's ADP should start to come down when people start to come to their senses a little bit. Like, what the hell are we doing? Yeah, he's wearing number 0, but damn, he's been out of football for 2 years.
I will say this is a tough range, though. It's a tough range.
That round?
That 4th round. Like, you really just got to kind of,
get your
stake
guy.
a claim.
Get your guy.
But
who you like. Who you like.
I definitely got players in this round that, like, I love.
Yeah.
And then I got some players in this round that I'm just, like, have zero interest in touching.
What is this? Is that 401 I'm seeing him at?
Yeah, 401.
So he can be back
based
in
off
3rd
of
round,
Fantasy
too,
Mojo,
then.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah.
But look at who's going ahead of him. Like, I don't want really Travis Etienne.
Cooper's still going high. Cooper just got back from surgery, I heard recently.
I will have 0 Cooper. We was all over Cooper last year. Had a ton of them.
He did pretty good, though, at some point.
He did very well.
Yeah.
But I'm not drafting him in the 3rd round. Nah, you can have that.
All right. Speaking of Fantasy Mojo, let's talk about consensus. Every year, the fantasy community build these consensus picks. Like, have you guys been studying boards? Like, who's that player that the whole fantasy community have like cast aside and thrown to the side to where like you think, you know what? Let's rethink that for a second.
I haven't looked at boards at all. And you know what's crazy? I was thinking about it the other day at the house. Last year compared to this year, I feel like last year every day I was seeing people posting boards on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, this is a draft from last night. This is a draft. This year, boys is holding their cards close to the chest, right?
Yeah.
Or am I tripping?
No, we holding it close to the chest.
Yeah, like
It does seem
people
like
aren't posting their boards like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if maybe the community learned something from last year or what it is. So I like I said, I haven't studied the board. I've been in a draft.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was cool. I want to kind of get my feet wet because I know we were going to do the show and just kind of see how things were. But I haven't really studied it yet, so I'm not really the best way to answer. I'm more just kind of just seeing. You know, I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on the internet a lot. I talk to people.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to see how people's perceptions are with players.
Yeah, I brought this, so I brought this question up. Like, the premise for this question is, a slow draft is a good example for this, where you have some time.
You do slow drafts?
I started this show. I actually kind of like it.
6 of the 2.
It scratches that itch just enough.
6 hour to 2 hour.
6 hours.
Oh, that's
6 hours.
You have
That
to
would
do
drive
this
me
yourself.
crazy.
It could be painful.
Yeah.
But
That's only when everybody's taking the
Yeah.
full amount
Yeah.
of time.
but the good thing about the slow draft is like you can like really try to take some time to like evaluate your pick. And
Don't
then
you have
also,
paralysis by analysis sometimes?
No, I never.
No?
Not me. Not
Okay.
me, son. But really, what I like is just being able to evaluate every single pick. Because I try to do that in a live draft, but it can be hard keeping up with that. A lot of times I'm trying to fill my queue, or like I'm trying to like kind of anticipate what's going to happen, or like worst case scenario, so I don't get on tilt during the draft. But in a slow draft, you can really kind of look at each individual pick, because I get an email every single time a pick goes through, and I look and I'm like, okay, and then I'll like always go back and look at the board.
Yeah.
So for me, like, one of the aspects of doing the slow draft that I really enjoyed is being able to like appreciate guys that like I just literally gave zero thoughts to, whether good or bad. It's just a guy that like was just like in the back of my mind, like, maybe I'd done a couple of fast drafts and some best balls, and like he was never a guy that I looked for in a queue, or never a guy that I was like excited to take, and I would just kind of pass on him. And there's a lot of guys like that. But one of the guys that I think I'll bring up two, and these are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. One of the guys is Michael Thomas,
Yeah.
So right now, Michael Thomas ADP per Fantasy Mojo we got to stop calling it the football guys, because it is not the football guys anymore. Players Championship, I believe.
Fantasy Pros.
Fantasy Pro.
Yeah, Fantasy Pros.
One of those.
No, shout out to
of those.
Fantasy Pros since they got, I know they're trying to kind of build that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me see. Man, can you help me find? Yeah, Michael Thomas. So Michael Thomas right now is going at the 902, but honestly, like I'll see him in the 10th round, but like 9th round. And by no means am I thinking, Michael Thomas, the name, the guy who's like a perennial, like, top first round pick, catching over 100 balls. But in the same right, I think he's one of those guys that we just said, he hadn't been able to stay healthy, like ignore him. But it's twofold. Because we're ignoring him, we are also propping up Olave. For Olave to really pay off his second round grade, Michael Thomas cannot be a thing.
Yeah.
Like he cannot be a thing. Derek Carr is not supporting multiple.
Who was the
pass
Saints wide
receivers.
receivers last year besides Shaheed and Olave? Wasn't there somebody else that had the? What's his name? Callaway?
Yeah.
Was that his name?
Yeah, but he didn't get much run, and then there was
But who started off as because Olave didn't step in day one as the wide receiver one. Somebody else played.
That was
role.
Jarvis Landry.
Landry, that's right, Landry. Okay. Okay.
So, for me, like, and we can like this again. This is like a talent versus situation type question, but I honestly like we got to be careful, because if Michael Thomas shows up at OTAs or in training camp, or he gets into Derek Carr's ear, I guarantee you Derek Carr is one of those guys who's going to like lean on a vet with like sure hands. Okay. Like, and I'm not saying like he's just going to ignore Chris Olave or ignore the fact that Olave can get separation and things like that. But what I'm saying is like, don't put it past Derek Carr to just say, you know what, I like Michael Thomas, or put it past Michael Thomas to actually be healthy this year.
Yeah.
Because if he's healthy, I just don't see a situation where Michael Thomas is just kind of in the background. So that's a tough situation for me to gauge.
So you think that he's going to alpha his way to get,
I don't think it'll be a situation like we talked about before. Where I think last year we were actually having a discussion of like Hill versus Waddle, and I was like, oh, Hill going to alpha his way to wide receiver one. That Waddle will still be good, but Hill is going to alpha his way to be dominant, and that's what happened. I don't think that's a situation because the talent just isn't there. But I don't think that we can just fully ignore it. I do think we need to like follow this in the offseason.
I think, and I haven't really thought about this at all till you were just talking about it now, but I think what people, and I'm totally assuming here, but I think with Olave, I think people are trying to get ahead of the train before it takes off.
Which is a good thing to do sometimes.
He's going into his second year.
Yeah.
He had a great, we would say great, right? Rookie season.
And by all analytics that people can list off for like days, he was just amazing.
Right,
top 3,
right.
top 5,
I
top
saw
3,
one
top
tweet
5.
recently where he actually, they could, people can fudge numbers to make it look however they want, but I did see a tweet where they were comparing his numbers to Garrett Wilson, and they were talking about how he missed 2 games, and with those 2 games missed, he just barely was lower in stats than Wilson. So I think that's what people are hoping for. They're hoping for that blow up.
Yeah.
That second year blow up from Olave, improve quarterback play, hopefully improve offense. So where's Olave going, by the way? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Is he like a top 3 rounder?
He's going to the second round.
He's going at
Second
301.
round.
301. But I see him in the second round a lot. And I think he'll end up going in the second round. Now, again, it really kind of depends on who he's going around. So you can't just say, I'm not going to take him there. You got to say, okay, who am I going to take him above?
Right.
But, like, it's a hard thing because when you hear the pro arguments for Olave, if it starts off or if it includes, okay, Olave, he doesn't got much for competition. Michael Thomas can't stay healthy. We can't count on him. He's likely not. If like the argument includes automatically states that like Michael Thomas can't stay healthy and just kind of discards him as if he's not going to play, I think you got to have some pause. Because like that. You see a lot of like fantasy arguments like that where we just like you throw out like just like definitive assumptions. This guy can't stay healthy. This guy's no good. So X players is going to blow up.
Let's talk through it. Who is his competition right now? I haven't looked really close to the Saints, but Landry's gone.
Yeah.
Callaway went to Denver.
Yeah.
Shaheed is there, but he's an undrafted whatever. And then Michael Thomas. I saw I don't know if it was a story or something where they were saying we hope Michael Thomas is ready for training camp. And when I see stuff like that, I'm like, man. So you're saying you're not sure? Like it's still ambiguous?
I gotta look this up. I think he had like some type of clean. No, that wouldn't. No,
so okay. Michael Thomas, Shaheed. Who was the other receivers in New Orleans right now?
Juwan Johnson.
He's a tight end.
He's still a receiver. He scored a lot of touchdowns last year.
Okay, but who's the other? Literally the wide receivers. Like when 2 receivers, 3 receivers say, who's going to be out there?
You got the depth chart pulled up.
Because I can't think of anybody. So with me not being able to think about it, there might be merit a little bit to that.
Yeah,
he's the only guy there,
Yeah.
But I definitely I understand where you're coming from.
I think it's in his range of possibilities, but I also just don't think that Derek Carr is like supporting like 2 elite wide receivers.
I got you.
So I got to like question myself, like, because I'll have some Olave shares.
Okay.
But taking him in the second round, man, that's
tough. Tre'Quan Smith. Tre'Quan wasn't bad.
No, he was bad.
No, man, Tre'Quan wasn't that bad.
He was bad.
Yeah.
Who's the other guy? You said 2 guys.
They got James.
So this is the other end of the spectrum, and this is a guy that dynasty guys are on, but the redraft community is just kind of casting.
Marvin Mims.
How did you know that?
God.
How did you know that?
Yes, sir.
That's a hell of a call.
Yes, sir.
That's a hell of a call.
Man, when I tell you
Marvin
I
Mims.
scoop up Marvin Mims in like the 17th, 18th,
Yes, sir.
16th, I'll take him in the 13th if I need to.
Yes, sir.
I just scoop him up across the board because that's another one of those situations where like you're not telling yourself this, but it's already kind of embedded in your head that, okay, man, they got Judy, obviously. They got Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick coming back from injury,
Hamler.
Greg Dolchik,
Hamler.
Yeah, sure. But they got all they got all these wide receivers.
Yeah.
But we forget a couple. We don't forget, but we don't like really emphasize a few things. Brand new head coach, brand new offensive coordinator. This team literally.
Who's the OC?
Lombardi. He brought his boy back over. Yeah. So brand new OC. This team was decimated. Okay. Traded away, some of their best defensive players.
You didn't bring up the biggest thing that I would say.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. But this team was decimated, right? They had not too many. They didn't have any first round picks, right?
Right.
With their first pick in the second round, they take a player at a position that they have an abundance of.
Yeah, you halfway said it. They traded up.
They traded up for that player.
That's the biggest thing. They traded up to get this dude.
They traded up to get that
First
dude.
pick was ever yeah.
And who wanted him? Sean Payton wanted
sure,
him.
sure.
And then what do we hear all this offseason? We hear about, trade talks. This guy may go here. Now, obviously, they picked up Jerry Jeudy's option.
Yeah.
But I learned my lesson with Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
I was no. And then last year, got on that Bible study train and was like, okay, that Bible narrative. Okay. I can kind of rock with that. No,
Right.
this guy is he
So,
is who we thought
I was
he was.
looking up because
So-
I'm a bunch of dynasty
Yeah.
leagues, so I've been trying to draft him as much as I can in that mid-second round. For the people that are doing dynasty rookie drafts, that's kind of where he's going. Early second, I've been able to get him late second too. I think a couple drafts I got him in the early third, which I was like overjoyed about. But I looked at him and I started because whenever I look at these rookies, whenever I kind of get excited about them, I start to go even back to their high school days.
Oh,
and
man,
just kind of
love
look at
them.
them.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody knows Texas has the best high school football players ever. So he's from Texas, right? Dude has the most receiving yards as a receiver in Texas history.
History.
Oh, wow.
History.
And people think he's just this like fast, deep threat.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this guy is much more.
And breakout, like he broke out his freshman year at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
As far as breakout,
He could have been
age.
used so many different ways
Yeah.
at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But this is like I have this comp, and I'm not a huge comp guy, and I'm not. This is not a player comp. This is like a fantasy football situation comp. I just can't get out of my mind the idea that like he could be like this year's Amon-Ra. You remember Amon-Ra's rookie season where like literally just like ghost, like not even existent like the first half, and then just boom, gangbusters.
Yeah.
Because it won't take much. Like
Second game buster.
it won't.
Go ahead.
I don't know where it's coming from. It won't take much, and again, telling yourself a narrative. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe an injury, maybe just like I think he could like easily beat out Cortland Sutton potentially and beat out some of these other guys. Time will tell. Like, but in my mind, I've already established the fact that like I'm drafting him as someone who will help me win tournaments, not as somebody who's starting for me
Right,
day one.
okay,
So
good,
this guy is going to
good.
be a weight
Good.
on my roster.
There you
This is
go.
a guy that
There
I
you
will
go.
not.
That's
So
the-
if you do
that's the point
draft
I was
him,
gonna make
you
right
can't
there.
drop him.
Right.
And if somebody does drop him,
Pick him up.
I'm picking
That's
him
the
up.
point I was gonna make. Like, if you're drafting him to be a early contributor, you probably are selling yourself a dream a little bit because he does have to kind of go over a few hurdles initially. But at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, he's going to be very useful for you. So be patient. He's the type of player you are patient, and you're taking him late.
Yeah.
See, and I always say this. When we start getting to these drafts, when I start drafting more teams, I always say, man, when you start looking at those late picks that you're making, be real with yourself, because once that first waiver wire runs, those are going to be the guys you drop, right? So don't let him be the one that you're dropping. Like he's not going to be very productive probably day one, and you're probably not going to hear that much buzz about him. But don't make the mistake of saying, well, I need to pick up this running back that might, get a few games as a starter because the starter's hurt, so I'm just going to drop Mims because I have nobody else. No. Hold on to that guy. Drop somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely in Dynasty, prioritize Mims and redraft. If you can get them, but just be patient with them.
All right, guys. That's our dynasty talk for the night. No, but that's an hour, man. Like, that's it. That's all we got on the docket for today.
We can't give him too much the first episode.
No.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about Gibbs and
We
Bijan?
gave him nothing.
Not yet. Let's save that for next episode.
Okay.
Because I got something to say about that. Although that is your talent versus situation.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that next episode.
Okay.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.